Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual town hall for Region 2. Candidates are Alan LaValle and Peter Lang. My name is Tyler Youngchief. I work for One Feather Technologies. I'm the partner manager, and tonight I will be your moderator, as well as my co-host, Delaney Barlow. Delaney, if you want to give yourself a wave, thank you. And today we're going to go over the two candidates, platforms, introductions, and closing remarks. But first, let's go over the agenda. So we're going to review the code of conduct. We'll get over the time management. Every candidate's going to have a set time to do their opening remarks, as well as talk about their platform and their closing remarks. Yeah. Then we'll get into everybody's questions. If there are any, please drop them in the chat box. Myself and Delaney will be going over them to start asking the candidates after their platforms. If you are unsure about a question, by all means, just let me and Delaney know. We'll be quick to help you out. At the end of the night, it'll be closing remarks from both candidates, myself as well. And then we'll continue on. As for the code of conduct, I ask all participants, please adhere to be respectful and professional demeanor. Personal attacks or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and may result in removal from the meeting. Now that goes for both candidates and spectators, so please keep that in mind. We want to host a very respectful town hall, so please be diligent and mindful when you're asking a question.
The mic is on.
So if we get started here, we'll give the floor to Mr. Peter Lang for introductions. Peter, you'll have 3 minutes to go over.
Can somebody mute the participants though, just so I don't get cut off?
Done.
Okay, good. And then we can restart the timer, so. Thanks. Hey, Swayal, Tanse. My name's Peter Lang, and I'm running to be your Region 2 Director for Métis Nation, BC. Proud to be joining you tonight from unceded Chilkoyak territory, the Solo territory, commonly known as Chilliwack. My Métis roots go back to the Red River settlement, but our family scripts are in Birch Hills, Saskatchewan, near Prince Albert. My Métis family names include Cunningham, Ross, Halcrow, Sutherland, Cook, and Flett. I was raised in Campbell River on Vancouver Island after my grandparents moved there from Saskatchewan when my mom was a young child. I've been involved with the Métis charter communities on a volunteer level since the late 1990s. I attended university in Nanaimo and I have a diploma in criminology as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree. I planned on a career in justice and eventually was hired by the Correctional Service of Canada as a correctional officer in January 2001. Since I had a BA and a crim background, I was promoted quickly. I became a parole officer and spent 2 years supervising offenders on parole in Kelowna. I was promoted again around 2007 to assistant warden, and I've worked at various federal prisons throughout the valley and served as deputy and warden at Queequeg Healing Village in Sta'alis territory. Many of you know that in 2015, I lost a child in the youth justice system run by MCFD. We tried reaching out for help before he was sucked into the colonial justice system, but there was no help. We lost our son 3 months after his initial contact with MCFD, and his case was investigated by the representative for children and youth. There were numerous gaps and gaffes by MCFD that contributed to his death. It should never have happened, and it affected me profoundly and turned me into an outspoken activist and truth teller, not just for Métis people, but for anyone who is marginalized by the colonial institutions, bullies, or bigots. I believe in Tapwaywen. That's the act of telling the truth, even if it means that I become their target. I sit on a number of boards as a volunteer, which I'm sure will come up when I talk about my platform. I believe my lived experience, including my activism, positions me well to serve as Region 2 Director and to take on portfolios like justice to advance our rights within the province on behalf of Métis citizens. My desire is to be part of positive change for our citizens so other families do not feel helpless when they are reaching out for support. When they come to us in need, we need to answer their call. I look forward to sharing more about my platform and ideas throughout tonight's town hall, and I'll also do my best to answer any questions. Miigwech, Marcy, and thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for that introduction, Peter. Now, Alan, we will get the timer ready. If you can unmute yourself. Oh, we got a couple more people joining. And you're on the clock now, Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan LaValle. Today I'm speaking to you from the traditional territory from the Kwantlen and Katzie First Nations. I am a candidate for Region 2 Director in the Métis Nation BC general election on September 7th, 2024. Some of the things you should know about me. I'm a regular guy with a big heart for people. I am willing to put in the work to get what needs to be done. I have been working in the trades as an iron worker for 37 years. I was raised in a loving Métis home, and my ancestry is deeply connected to the Red River Valley. Some of my ancestral ties on my father's side are Lavalles, Vandals, Arcans, Pichis, Portress, and Ross. On my mother's side, they are McKays, Borisaws, Lucier, Fiddler, Brazeau, and Lafleur. I am an adoptive parent of a Métis child. I have a wonderful 12-year-old grandson, and I have been a committed big brother to the Big Brothers organization. My little brother is now all grown up with his family of his own, and we keep in very close contact. We have gone on so many water slides vacations and attended events together over the years. He has been affiliated with Make-A-Wish Foundation for many years, and I couldn't be more proud of him. After 28 years of being part of his life, his mother and his young family are my family. We consider him to be our son. Once I make a commitment, I am always in for the long haul. I am the co-founder and past president of Waichia Métis Society in Langley. I was an attendee at the 2000 Cowichan Indigenous Games and was included in the BC Chief Talks, which was such an honor. Paddling in the RCMP and community canoes, including the journey to Lumbee in 2007 with my son, was something I will always remember. I did not personally paddle to Cowichan as I was working at the time. I have been involved in so many youth endeavors when I coached hockey and soccer and an umpire-in-chief for Kennedy Surrey Little League and head of the concession for many youth events. I have always been involved with the youth in my community as they are our future, and we need to believe in them and give them the tools to know who they are, where they came from, and what the future can hold for them. I am proud to be a Métis citizen. I had a wonderful childhood growing up with my family that attended church every Sunday. I was raised with the understanding of who I am, who we are as people, and sharing and community are so important. Together, we are all a part of something much bigger. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Mr. LaValle. And now I just want to remind everybody that's participating, if you do have questions, don't be afraid to put them in the chat. Myself and Delaney Barlow will review them. Oh, sorry about that. Myself and Delaney will review them, and then we will ask the candidates once we get to the question period. So for now, we want to jump right into the candidate forum or candidate platform, sorry. So we'll give the mic over to Mr. Lang again.
Thank you. Yeah, my platform is rooted in five key ideas. The most important ones to me at the moment. First one being bringing our children home and ensuring their Métis culture and rights are recognized and respected. Sit on the board of Hyokmeath, which is a delegated agency that looks at First Nations and Métis. And I've seen some of the inside stuff that happens there. There's a lot of really good stuff that happens there, and there's a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily so great, that could be better. But the fact is we don't have control of our children at all in this province, and we need to change that. We need agencies that are rooted in culture. We need Métis daycares. We need Métis after school care, and we need to be building a stronger network of Métis foster parents. Second one is supporting Métis people navigating the justice system and implementing our own Métis Nation BC justice strategy with the province of BC. So I sit on the MNBC Justice Committee right now, and I have for about 6 years. And I've watched it come from its infancy to now at the point I'm told is going to be announced fairly quickly here. I hopefully will see it in the next couple of weeks when they go back and sit in the legislature. That'll bring us some extra funds to help our Métis people that are in conflict with the law. So the Indigenous Justice Centers that you've seen being open throughout the province, we have access to that now, but we'll be able to even have greater access once we can bring some resources to the table. Ensuring the institutions understand who we are as Métis. That was a big gap in my son's case. They dismissed the fact he was Métis. There was no Gladue report done on him. And they didn't really believe he was Métis. They didn't even know what Métis was. And that needs to change. Our results as Métis people in the federal prison system are very similar to First Nations. They're very comparable rates. I've seen both the rates split up, and our rates of recidivism are very close, and our incarceration rates are very close. Third one is supporting chartered communities and treating members as my consultants, listening to the leaders and the board members, the youth and the elders. In a lot of these communities, women are doing the heavy lifting, and that's the way it is in Chilliwack, for example. Although I'm the president of Chilliwack Métis Association, it's actually the women that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So I just want to give them a shout out. Brianna, Sharon, Shannon, Debbie, Mary Daniels, and Holly, who's our BC Manor rep. They do so much work in our community. And I listen to what they have to say when they give advice. And the fourth one is pursuing ready-made housing opportunities throughout the entire region so our future generations have access to safe and affordable housing. I know MNBC in the past has done some things where they've bought land and then nothing's happened, or the land turned out to not be great to build on, or things like that. We can't do that anymore. We need to buy ready-made apartments, condos. There's one in Sardis that we're looking at right now. It's 36 units. It's very clean. It's recently renovated. It's a great value for the dollar, and it's ready to rent out right now. And those type of opportunities are the things we need to jump at. And then the last one is strengthening relationships with First Nations and working with them on issues of shared interests such as justice, housing, health, and children and families. We have a great relationship with Stalo in Chilliwack. They've been awesome. They're our landlords at Métis House, and they've been just great. And I always say this is a model for other communities to follow. Louis DeJager signed a health accord with First Nations Health Authority and Fraser Health recently, and he worked his butt off on that with Doug Kelly. And we want to improve that relationship province-wide. We have some other people from BCMF running around saying dumb things that are undermining our relationship with First Nations. And we've got to stop that. We got to be a little more out there when it comes to who we are as MNBC, and that we speak for the Métis people, not BCMF and not any other group like Red River Métis or whoever they want to call themselves. They're undermining our relationship with First Nations, and we got to change that. So those are the 5 things that I want to focus on if I'm elected, among other things. So I'm glad to take any questions on any of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Peter. Mr. LaValle, before we get to you, Alan, I just want to reiterate, this town hall is being recorded, and in about 24 to 48 hours after the videos or the town hall is done, it will be posted on the MNBC website. So if any of the candidates or any of the voting members want to have access to it, it will be uploaded in the next 24 to 48 hours. With that, Mr. LaValle, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I am committed to these issues. Holding board meetings throughout all the regions, increase accountability and transparency in conduct. MNBC board business is a priority. Holding quarterly meetings in a region, bringing an internal part of the good governance closer to the grassroots. New citizen and citizenship renewal should not be taken such a long process. Citizen renewals needs to be streamlined, as it should not take up to 14 months for a renewal, as no background changes needs to be made. These citizens have already proved their ancestry to be a citizen. It is just a renewal policy with addresses or phone contacts updated. New citizens whose parents and grandparents have already citizenship should only have to prove their parentage as a way of ancestry has already been proved through their parents' and grandparents' citizenship. We need to educate Métis families to be able to foster and have housing available for our children. It is great to talk about Métis children being placed in their own homes or foster homes, but if we don't have educated people and have the housing and families available to look after them, how are we able to place them in their communities? We need to educate them and not just talk about it. We also need to advertise to our youth and all citizens about the opportunity of post-secondary and trade education. They need to know the importance of the pension and medical plans for them to understand these things, which will mean to them as they travel through life and into the future. Affordable housing is needed for our Métis elders. We are not just talk about it, but actually look into it. Find out who is in need of assistance and do something. We have to let them know what is being done, even in the early stages of what can be done. Funding for our elders and veterans home repairs needs to be addressed. There should be no limit access to funds required for items like new roof, regardless of their CPP or old age pension revenue, or if they have a pension plan from working. Advocate for our elders and veterans by listening to them and making sure they feel seen and heard is something that I am committed to, as they have led the way for us. They are our past, present, and future. Listening to every person's concern is an issue. While working for the betterment of our communities, it is so important. Establish a Métis pharmacy. Research could be done to establish feasibility. If viable, establish a Métis-owned pharmacy as 100% BC, MNBC-owned entrepreneur or a partnership with an already established pharmacy. It's time we give back to the communities, working for the real people, not just for the benefits of self-interest. Together, I believe we can make a change at MNBC by working with individual communities for the betterment of and interests for everyone. When I commit to do something, I follow through. If you have any questions or concerns, information, or just want to chat, I am always available via email, adlavalley@shaw.ca, or Facebook, or you can always text my phone or phone me at 604-220-7066. If I don't know the answer you require, I will be looking into it and find out. With your support, I will be part of a team-driven transformation, changing the leadership at MNBC. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. Now, I just want to remind everybody, if you do have a question, by all means, put it in the chat box. Myself and Delaney will moderate it and take turns asking the candidates. Unless you have a specific question, by all means, tag the let us know which candidate you'd like to ask the question to, and then we will proceed. But for now, let's get into a question from. So let's start with Mr. Lang. How will your past life experience help you advocate for Métis people? Are you or have you ever been a member of MMF, Red River, or BCMF?
I have never been a member of any of those three groups or whatever that you just mentioned. I've only ever been a member of MNBC. I've been volunteering in chartered communities since the 90s, as I said in my intro. My very first community was Mid-Island Métis Nation. Tim Lowe was the president at the time. I was in university, and I got my community card back then. They didn't have the provincial card. They had the community card, and my cousin started working in the office, and it was I've seen Métis politics done since the late 90s, and let me tell you, I'm not super impressed with some of the previous leaders that we've seen, especially the ones that have been removed. My previous experience, I think what really informs my advocacy was my grandma. She was somebody that was a big influence on me. She worked as a janitor at, and one of her contracts was actually Indian Affairs in Campbell River. So I used to go with her to work in the afternoons and clean the garbage cans and ashtrays and windows. And the boss in the office was, but we called him Bobby Joseph back then. It was Robert Joseph. Some of you may know him. He wrote this book called Namwayat. He was a huge influence on my grandma, and in turn became sort of a role model to me. She used to always say, that Bobby Joseph is a good man. And so I would always look at him as a kid and go, that's what I want to be one day. I always joke that that's how I ended up in the public service, because I would go to the Indian Affairs office and see all these government employees going home at 4:30 or whatever. And it's like, oh, I want to have a big fancy desk and computer and all that type of stuff. So but then my experience in the justice system, I think, was the biggest thing. When I got into the Correctional Service of Canada, I remember the first day of sitting down and looking at the mission statement, that we believe that everybody has the ability to change. And I totally believe that. I've had cousins that have been in conflict with the law. One went to jail in Prince Albert for a couple of years for stealing a car. He turned his life around and became a very well-respected businessman after that. Never was in conflict with the law again. So I always believed in the mission statement, but I was really disappointed with the amount of First Nations and Métis that were incarcerated there, that didn't have a connection to their culture, that went through the child welfare system or foster care system. 90-something% of the First Nations or Métis offenders that I've been in contact with have had contact with the child welfare system. And that's where my own son was going when he was in conflict with the law and was supervised by MCFD. And I knew that the odds go up of you ending up in jail when you have these things at play in your life. If you quit school early, if you end up in foster care, we know that that just increases your chances. Poverty, lack of housing, all those things. So that's what over 23 years now that I've watched, nothing's improved in that system. You know, they basically warehouse you. Like there's no computers for inmates. There's no way to do post-secondary education. You could, if you're lucky, you can get grade 12 while you're incarcerated, but that doesn't really get you that far ahead these days. So that experience, I think, helps inform me to be able to advocate on behalf of Métis citizens. I also don't like bullies, and I don't like bigots. So I stick my neck out on the line quite often for people that that are from a marginalized group. I'm white passing. I can hide behind my skin color. I don't have to tell people I'm Métis. I'm very proud to tell people I'm Métis, but I don't have to do that. Likewise, when it comes to LGBTQ2S plus, I stick my neck out and I go to bat for people in that would identify. And to me, those are the experiences that inform my ability to be able to advocate for Métis people. I've been doing it my whole life. I've been doing it for elders in this community since I've been the president of Chilliwack Métis. We ran a food security program last year. I went and wrote a grant for $30,000 with the United Way, and we had a booth at the farmers market, and we ensured that our elders were getting healthy food every week. And in turn, it kind of almost became a meeting place for elders to come hang out and chit chat with each other. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant this year, so we didn't have the booth. But that's the type of stuff that I've been doing my whole life. That's what my grandma did. She always was advocating for other people. In our little community in Campbell River, we had a huge immigrant population, South Asians especially, and she would take these families in and welcome them to the community, to the point that we would be invited to their house for dinner. And I learned, I acquired a taste for delicious Indian food at a very early age. And, so I look at her as my role model, and that's how I live my life, is I put other people first ahead of my own interests. And I think I'll just leave it there.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaValle, I'll ask you the same question. How will your past life experience help you advocate for Métis people? Are you or have you ever been a member of MMF, Red River, or BCMF? Oh, Alan, I believe you're still muted.
Am I, okay. After when the school was purchased by MNBC, I did join BC Fed at the time. I haven't been affiliated with them for good 10, 12 years, probably. Uh, I I've been in the trades. I've done a lot of training with our not only First Nations but the Métis that come along in the ironworking field. I've been able to help them continue on through the whole program. I always encourage them to go for their red seal as a journeyman ironworker, not just a rod buster or not as a structural hand. I try to enforce go for the whole thing because it opens up so many doors for you where you can continue on until you however long you want. I've had I do believe I was one of the first iron ironworker foreman that had a female rod buster on the crew with them, and there was a bullying incident with her. I took her aside. I sent her home with pay. I told her, you come back later, I will handle this for you. I told all the guys that they had to respect her because she is just as good as anyone else. And if you guys cannot train her, you're no benefit to me, because you have to work as a team at anything you do, wherever you go in your life. You have to work as a team. Growing up, we were just your average family. We went to our church. We always had family dinners just about every Sunday between our house, my uncles. I had a couple uncles that lived not too far away, and that's how we done it. We're like our door was always open. And when we were kids, our house was the house that most of the kids always came to. The door was always open. The fridge was open. If you were hungry, you made yourself something to eat, and you had to clean up. Everyone ended up doing dishes, like it was a team effort all the time. Whatever you do in your life, it is always a team effort. You have to work together, and you have to have a strong team, or else it'll never work out. My dad's one of 13. I'm probably one of the closest to all my aunts and uncles. Whenever there was any functions, I was lucky enough to marry a woman that was just like me, where family is so important that we've gone to all the functions. Now that we're into the cousins kids, I don't know them as well, but as soon as anyone comes around, my door's open. They're always welcome, and I've always been known as Uncle Alan to them, whether it's even just friends' kids. And with like with our foster son, we had to he was abused before we got him, and we had to deal through all of that, and we ended up being a great family. And we out of that, we've got a 12-year-old grandson. He's with us all the time on the weekends ever since he was a baby, just about. That family is so important to us. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. We have another question. I'll go ahead and bring this back to Mr. Lang. How would you increase cooperation on a regional basis between Métis, First Nation, and Inuit in the areas of health and education?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think one of the biggest things that I would bring to the table in that area would be leveraging the relationships I already have with First Nations. I grew up in Campbell River, very close to Wehwekom Nation, just not too far off the reserve. And my best friend at the time was Sharice Henderson. She was like a sister to me. She passed away when she was 19 in a car accident, but her family are quite well known. Bill Henderson's a carver there. So I do have some connections in that nation on Vancouver Island, but I also established a lot of connections when I worked as assistant warden, and I was warden up at Queequeg at Steela. So in fact, actually, I was walking downtown last week and I ran into Boyd Peters, who sits on the First Nations Justice Council. And we were walking towards the Indigenous Justice Center, and I told them about our justice strategy and it getting close to being approved by the BC government, and that I look forward to hopefully working with them in the justice portfolio at some point. We worked together up at the Healing Village. I worked with Willie Charlie when he was chief up there, as well as Alex Paul and a few others. So I have relationships already. I have relationships in our territory right here, just through work and through my daily life. So I think it's leveraging those relationships. When it comes to health, we had Louis sign that agreement with First Nations Health Authority. It's the first one in Canada. It's never been done. No Métis government has ever signed a First Nations health agreement or an agreement with First Nations. So we've got sort of all of us bringing our stuff to the table and working together. We have a pharmacy about 20 steps outside of Métis House in Chilliwack that our citizens can access already. So there's lots being done that people don't know about, that I don't know if Alan's been involved much in the last little while. But so in the last 3 years, there's been so much progress made that it's astounding. I remember my first day going into the Métis office in Surrey, and that was when the guy that runs BCMF was president, and he had just been removed that day. I came over to look for a job. I was in university and I was super poor, and I wanted to I took the bus all the way from Horseshoe Bay out to Surrey, only to find the doors locked and a couple of big guys standing out there guarding it. They did let me in to go look at the job board, but I was not impressed with the Métis politics at that time, and not a lot was being done. We weren't getting a lot of recognition or financial support at all. So things have come a long ways, but I think leveraging those existing relationships that I already have, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, for example, I think he's with Union of BC Indian Chiefs. He sat on our Senate at the Healing Village, and him and I had a lot of great conversations. In fact, he was actually at my son's funeral when he passed away. He gave me some great advice in the Longhouse, and when my son was struggling and he was living with me, and I was talking to him about it, and he just gave me some really, really good advice. It was in the Longhouse up at Queequeg, and it always stuck with me. So if I get the opportunity to be the Region 2 rep, that's a phone call I'm going to be making, is to Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, because we've got some work to do with the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, thanks to the BCMF. But anyway, we'll go there when we get there. But same with health. With health, we have, like I said, the pharmacy. We worked with First Nations. We shared resources during COVID, masks, vaccine knowledge. We shared it widely with our elders. We came together and we agreed we have to protect our elders, because they were the most vulnerable during that pandemic. So we made sure they all had everything they needed to stay safe, whether it was masks, whether it was a ride to get their vaccine, or whether it was the hand sanitizer and things that you needed to do to try not to get sick. So yeah, like I say, it's leveraging existing relationships in Region 2. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. And now Alan will ask you the same question. How would you increase cooperation on a regional basis between Métis, First Nation, and Inuit in the areas of health and education?
I have a great relationship with a lot of the First Nations due to the kind of the construction work where in the rebar field there's a lot of them. And when COVID was around, we were supporting, like I was even going out and buying masks, not only for the elders and that, also for the elementary school that my grandson went to. I was probably the only one that kept on coming. Like every week I was doing the shopping for, I do believe it was probably about five families, so that that the elders weren't going in and having a chance of getting COVID. I done it. I dropped off their food at their place and continued with it right all the way through COVID. With education, we gotta let all the kids know all the different avenues, because like the way how I've seen it was, like all of a sudden the computers came in, and that the computers were, everyone was going to computers, and the trades are suffering from that now because of the age of all the people retiring. There's a big gap of where there wasn't that many qualified people to do the job. And with Waichia, we were very lucky when we first started out. We had Judy Dolan, who was I do believe she was one of the head of the Langley School District Aboriginal support workers. So I got to know all of them very well. Some of them have retired now. My son, when he was going to school, I've always been in contact with their Aboriginal support workers. The one lady at the one school, she probably sent me about, I would say probably about 1,500 pictures that she had taken of all the activities that they were doing during the school hours. So in the Langley school area, we have great support with the Aboriginal support workers, both with the First Nations and Métis, because some of the Aboriginal workers were Métis, some were First Nations. And like even with the canoe journey, we brought our youth, and they learned our cultural. They learned how they were canoeing. They learned about the potlatches that they had in Lumbee. That was the first one that they had in 150 years. And Waichia was the only Métis community that was asked to paddle with the First Nations. We had canoes from Hawaii and all that. It was just spectacular. So like and to every 4 years with the salmon, I help with the Katesy to supply Métis families and friends with salmon, and that's every 4 years. And I myself purchase 100, so I'm good for the 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. We do have some questions that did come in ahead of time. I should go over, and they were just brought up to us now. So give me a second. How would you, MNBC, support community-driven affordable housing and child care initiatives like the Indigenous Housing Fund application submitted to BC Housing by NFMA? Mr. Lang?
I don't know what that acronym was. What was it again?
The acronym was NFMA, so I'm not familiar with that one as well.
Yeah, I spoke to it in my platform discussion. There is we have money to purchase housing, and there is opportunities out there like this 36 unit complex in Sardis that's just been renovated. that's what we would do is I would like to see us purchasing those in every community, especially in Region 2. But starting in Chilliwack, because we do have a need. We have, as Alan mentioned, seniors that are living well below the poverty line, elders that are living well below the poverty line that need to have safe, clean, affordable housing in order to thrive. Same with young families. I was super poor when I was in university. I had 2 kids. I was working on my degree, and I had 2 little kids at home, and I was working for minimum wage, and I could barely make ends meet when you're buying diapers and formula, and kids are growing, and you got to get new clothes, or not new clothes, but even just used clothes. It's not easy. And I was lucky I got into BC Housing in Nanaimo in Harewood. It was at 6th and Bruce. Just drove by there on Sunday actually and had another look at it because, man, that made all the difference in the world to me in order to be who I am today. I don't think I would be here today if I didn't get into that affordable housing. The rent was based on my income at the time, and I remember my income was $10,000 that year. For the entire year. So you can do the math on that. That was the year 2000. That was what my T4 said. And my rent was about $250 a month. So that allowed me to be able to have enough money to be able to buy the things that my kids needed. I was a loss prevention officer working minimum wage, and I remember going from Thrifty Foods, would have diapers on sale one week, but not formula. So then I'd drive over to Quality Foods and get the formula over there just to save a couple bucks. And that's how desperate it was. And today, if you're living on a fixed income like CPP and inflation has gone through the roof during COVID and stuff, it's not easy to get by. So I think it's getting the ready-made housing, not building stuff because that takes too long and construction's too expensive. And as soon as you have an opportunity to move a senior into it, you move the senior into it. That 36 unit complex in Sardis is 2 different buildings. And what we've talked about is doing one that is subsidized and the other one would be at market rate. And we would also focus on students that are going to UFV. It's about a block away from UFV. And we would focus on seniors as well as some young families that are just starting out. So that's what I would do. I don't know what that acronym is, but I do recognize that working with BC Housing is the route to go. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Peter. We just got a follow-up from Anthony. He did say it's North Fraser Métis Association.
Oh,
So I'll bring it over to you, Mr. LaValle. How would you, MNBC, support community-driven affordable housing and childcare initiatives like the Indigenous Housing Fund application submitted to BC Housing by North Fraser Métis Association?
I happened to go and take a look at what he has all done, and it is incredible. It's be a 91 unit where it's and you also end up with storefront property and a cultural center. So, and it's BC Housing that is helping out with that. That's 91 complex building for our Métis people. Plus, we also have other income in there. They've got it so that there's an industrial kitchen. You can rent out the place, so you're making income, and the housing is very reasonable from what I was talking to the fella about it. And by the sounds of it, there is so many places that they want to do this to, where we could have one in every community where it's brand new. You don't have to worry about any kind of fix up, renovating. You'll have it for the next 100 years without any major issues, because after so long you're getting all that income into your community, where that'll be given out to do more things. It's got a garden where they want to have their own garden in the place that they're at, which is incredible is also they have a farmer's market across the street. So whatever the people in the units don't use, you could go and sell and bring money into the community that way too. So like there's all different options of doing it besides buying brand new. And like nothing wrong with Chilliwack, but if everything's getting done in Chilliwack, it's hard for the people in downtown Vancouver to uproot all the way there. The housing that North Fraser Métis Association is a daycare in there. So like it's a win-win situation, and I think we should be looking at all the possibilities of all of them going through as quickly as possible as we can. Thank you.
Now that I know it's North Fraser, can I just say a couple more things?
Yeah, it's just, hang on. Thank you, Mr. LaValle, for that. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I know the project that he's talking about. I don't know a lot of the specifics, but I also know that it's that North Fraser has kind of made themselves their own housing authority and are working with BC Housing and I think the United Church or something, which I think is great. I think it's, in theory, I think it's an excellent idea. It's very risky. And if it goes sideways, then it's the community that'll probably be on the hook for that. So I'm a little concerned about that. But nonetheless, in theory, I like it. And I do agree with Alan that every community needs some sort of affordable housing. Him and I talked about that when we were at the town hall in Langley. So thanks.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. I will get to one of the questions from our chat box. How will the candidates balance working closely with Region 2 presidents while managing their daytime job? And how might this affect their current responsibilities? Mr. Lang?
Yeah, well, I'm in retirement mode from the Correctional Service of Canada. Like I said, I've got over 23 years in with them. I'm on leave at the moment, and I don't anticipate going back necessarily there. But so I'm going to give my entire focus to MNBC if I'm elected.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Now the same question to you, Mr. LaValle. How will the candidates balance working closely with Region 2 presidents while managing their daytime job, and how might this affect their current responsibilities? Oh, sorry, you're still muted there, Mr.
Sorry
LaValle.
about that. I just seen it. I've been an iron worker for 37 years. I've got a pension. I would be retiring and doing solely with MNBC. I've got a pension that is very reasonable to live off. So I would be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. We'll get to another question from the chat box before we get back to some of the pre-asked questions. How can we support an equitable K-12 education system in BC that upholds non-site specific Section 35 rights to education, culture, and improved health outcomes? Mr. Lang?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to recognize that there are different types of Section 35 rights. There are land-based rights and there are non-land-based rights. And as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to, say, the prison system or the child welfare system or education or health, Métis results are very similar to First Nations results. They're not great. So in what I'd like to do is make sure that people understand the difference between land-based rights and non-land-based rights. Again, we have a leader of another group in this province, maybe more than one leader of groups in this province that are going around saying dumb things that are undermining our relationship with First Nations. And we've got to stop that. We got to make sure that First Nations understand that we're here as Métis. We're not going anywhere. Kelly Lake is going to be it's a traditional Métis community. We know that. Just look at the Métis homeland map. The province of BC wasn't established when Kelly Lake was established. It was there long before then. So I'd like to make sure that people understand the difference between those two types of rights. And then what I want to do is make sure that every school district, we need to talk about Bill 40, right? That really has kind of put us behind the 8 ball in terms of education. So I know that as citizens, there's a campaign to contact your MLA and make sure that you let them know that as Métis people, we're not happy with the sole focus of Bill 40 being around First Nations. We need to have them understand that we got 27,000 citizens here. Our Métis students in this district alone, I forget what the number is. I think it's like 680 or so in just school district 33, but they bring in about $1.2 million to the budget every year. We don't get ignored when we bring that kind of money in. We better not get ignored. And if we are getting ignored, we need to do something about it. This district is pretty good because Brenda Point is actually Métis. She's a Chartrand, and she married into the Point family. So she's an excellent contact for us. She's the Indigenous principal for SD 33. And yeah, so that's what I would do is I would make sure that people are educated about Bill 40 and how it's solely First Nations focused. And I would make sure our school districts are educated on non-land-based rights. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaBelle, I'll go to you. How can we support an equitable K-12 education system in BC that upholds non-site specific Section 35 rights to education, culture, and improved health outcomes?
We'd have to educate by phoning people and letting them know that we are here and that we gotta get back into the schools with all our Aboriginal support workers and get them to fight for us also, because a lot of the ones in Langley are all Métis. We got to make sure that our kids are getting the education through it all too, and information. We have to be teaching our kids when they're young. Like I was always taught being about Métis, so like it was never a shock. That's our whole life, and we got to go start right down at our grassroots and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaBelle. We will get back to one of the other questions that was pre-asked. How would you support local First Nation relations in Region 2? NFMA, North Fraser Métis Association, has an MOU with the, I apologize, that's a tough First Nation to say, Koikot First Nation to work together and partner in housing and child support services. They attend most of our events and they attend most of our events and us theirs. How do we move forward with other First Nations in our region? Mr. Lang?
Well, I think I answered that earlier. It's about leveraging the relationships that we already have. And I know Louis got excellent relationships with like Doug Kelly, who's Grand Chief. He's from Suwali. As I mentioned, I have good relationship with the ALIS leadership, as well as locally here as well. I sit on a number of boards with First Nations, like at Hyochmeath and the Connective. I'm on the board member of Connective in Abbotsford, which was formerly John Howard Society. And it's a cultural advisory board. So I'm their Métis representative, but there's First Nations on there as well. So I'm glad that North Fraser has a written agreement in one area. I think it's important just to make sure that in everything we do where our results are similar, those non-land-based rights areas like children and families, education, justice, we should always be working with First Nations. We always should. And we should be bringing our piece of the pie to the table with them. And that's how we will build a stronger relationship with First Nations in BC, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaValle, I'll ask the question again for you. How would you support local First Nations relations in Region 2? North Fraser Métis Association has an MOU with Kakite. Thank you, Lauren, for the pronunciation of the First Nation. To work together and partner in housing and child support services. They attend most of our events and us theirs. How do we move forward with other First Nations in our region?
What we got to do is we have to learn from how things are being done. We have an MOU signed with the First Nations. I would be going to that community and asking them for as much support and go around with all the different First Nation groups and try to get it done the exact same way as how North Fraser Métis Association has done it, because all I see is nothing but great things with this. It's so incredible we're starting in closer to the heart of Vancouver, where we've got so many of our homeless people are out there. Not saying that Langley has less or Chilliwack or whatever, but Vancouver is known to have the most homeless people in BC or in the Lower Mainland. So that's how I would do it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. I'll go back to one of our pre-asked questions. With the rise of people appropriating the Métis identity, how can you better support our nation and fight against this continued form of colonization? Mr. Lang?
Well, I actually have a human rights case going to the tribunal, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, on Métis identity, on Indigenous identity, actually. This is something that's going to help First Nations as well as Métis. I launched it about 6 years ago. I applied for a position within the Correctional Service of Canada. It was called the Regional Administrator of Indigenous Initiatives. It was after my son had passed away, and I knew that I was struggling to work in the prisons because I really get attached to the inmates and they remind me of my son, and it was just too much. So I applied for this position at regional headquarters that was more of a relationship building position. And they gave it to somebody that used to work for me that never, ever said they were Indigenous, never talked about any of their teachings or their culture. And they did it without even doing a competition. He was not at level. He was basically given a promotion, 2 levels without a competition. And there was First Nations people that worked in the Correctional Service of Canada that probably would have been excellent at the job. Jason Campbell, for example, he would have been an excellent candidate, and I wanted to apply for it. And I was already at that level, so it wasn't a promotion. But they purposely did that to freeze me out because I speak my mind and I tell the truth, and they don't like that in the public service. So I filed a human rights case because I knew darn well they didn't care whether the guy was Indigenous or not. They just cared that he ticked the box. And that's what he did. He ticked the box. Apparently he's got a Cherokee princess or something in his background, and he believes he's Indigenous, and he might be, I don't know, but he's never talked about it. And I knew he didn't have the sort of knowledge or relationships like I had. So I put that human rights case in, and I know I'm going to win that case. I mean, we've seen numerous examples throughout academia of people assuming First Nations identity and Métis identity, but we get it in the public service too. People get encouraged to tick the box so they can get a promotion. Or one lady that used to work for me said she was going to spit in a cup, and if it came back with 1% Indigenous, she was going to self-declare. So I know I'm going to win that case. I actually just got an email from my lawyer today, right before this town hall, saying they've got a case management meeting coming up next week to schedule the actual hearing. We tried mediation. We didn't get anywhere. Obviously, I can't talk about the mediation. I'm not allowed to, but I know I'm going to win the case. And it's not going to benefit me. It hurt my career launching that case, but I don't care. I doing it because I'm trying to clear a path for people behind me that go into the public service. So when a young version of me is sitting in that class looking at the mission statement on his first day of training, and they're a Métis or a First Nations person that are just joining the public service or the Correctional Service of Canada, they know that they are going to have an equal shot at these positions and not have to compete against liars. Basically, that's what you're competing against, liars and frauds, and that's got to stop. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaValle, I'll ask you the same question. With the rise of people appropriating the Métis identity, how can you better support our nation and fight against this continued form of colonization?
We have to stop the self-identifying and make sure that, okay, you have your MNBC card, you are a Métis. First Nations have to have their card. It's the same. When we start going with the self-identifying, then it opens up the door for all these people that want to take our money that shouldn't be allowed to. The longer we keep on going with self-identifying, the worse it ends up being. Like MNBC has however many citizens with cards, but then we've got probably 3 times the amount of self-identifying, and they have a year to prove it. But if they don't, you don't get the money back or anything like that. So we're getting scammed by too many people that aren't true Métis. And when you go for an employment, you show your MNBC card, and then you can't deny the person that they're Métis. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. I will get to another question here. What plans are forthcoming for economic diversification for Region 2 to support self-sustainability? Community programs, vertical gardens, bingos, 50-50 raffles, etc. Mr. Lang?
That's pretty small potatoes for being self-sustaining. What we did is, like I say, we have a Métis house in Chilliwack, and we rent from Stallo, and they give us a very good deal. And what we do is we in turn rent that space out to others. So there's 2 offices in there. We're about to do a major renovation to increase the bathroom size, from 1 bathroom to 2 bathrooms. We hold events there. People rent it. Community groups rent it, and they'll pay rent to us. So basically, we're making money off of just having that house there and making it available for other groups. But economic diversification is imperative for all the communities. You need to be self-sustaining. We're very, very, very healthy in Chilliwack. Somebody just asked to see our books recently, a Métis citizen, and we gladly sent her the books. And she took a look at them, and we've got money invested in GICs that are making money with the interest rates today. We keep reinvesting it, and it's just sitting there growing and growing and growing. So we're already economically diversified in this community, but I would like to see that replicated in the other charter communities as well. They need to get an actual space, like Vancouver Métis, for example. They don't have a space. So I think a key thing is helping them find a space that is flexible enough that they can then in turn rent it out to community groups. So in Chilliwack, we have the Pride group rents our house once a week, and then we have the Gender Support Network rents it once a week. We've had what was it called, Mindful Drumming group that came in and rented it. We have, like I say, fundraisers. We have political parties that rent our space because we have a really beautiful stage off the front that's just perfect for like outdoor concerts or whatever. So we have lights hanging out there, just a beautiful, beautiful space. So to me, that's the key to getting started. And then of course your 50/50s and your other things can happen after that. But to me, it's about getting that actual space to start putting roots down in your community. If you don't have an actual utilize like I guess North Fraser with their proposed building, you know, that might fulfill that role for them at some point, but that's years down the road. In the meantime, you know, Vancouver and other communities definitely need to have a good space. Langley, where Alan and I met that night, I mean, that's a nice space there, but I understand that they're not going to be able to be there much longer. So they're in a crucial position now too, where they're going to need to be able to find a decent space. So that's what I'd be doing, is I'd be finding good office space and rent that out.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaValle, I'll ask you the same question. What plans are forthcoming for economic diversification for Region 2 to support self-sustainability? Community programs, vertical garden, bingos, 50/50 raffles, etc. Mr. LaValle?
This goes back to North Fraser Métis Association. They're the only one that has a gaming license where they can hold bingos. Bingos make money. If this goes through for them, they will end up being in great economical shape real quickly, and the pattern is already there for the fellow to help with all the other communities, and not just starting with the Lower Mainland. We would branch it out to all the different regions so that it's not just the one region. Like it's great that Chilliwack has all this stuff, but no one else is getting anything because it's so expensive in the Lower Mainland. Whenever like there was property bought, nothing was ever done with it. There was property bought, I do believe up in I do believe in Terrace, and I heard that it was contaminated dirt, so that's going to end up being lost. So we gotta look at all different kind of venues, not just already built buildings where like, and we want places where our elders can go and meet, like these where with I can't think of the word. They're at the room, like as if a friendship center area that all our elders can meet. We can have jigging, we can have events there, we can rent out the hall, and it's available, could be available for all 39 communities very quickly, not just out in the Chilliwack area. We like Langley, try to buy any kind of land, or even with the First Nations, it's so hard right now. I've talked to a couple of my buddies that are First Nations in the trades, and they're struggling too. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. Another question here for Mr. Lang. Region 2 community gathering space. Myth or fact? When will Region 2 have a gathering space as other regions?
Region 2 have a gathering space. We have a gathering space out here, and people come to it all the time. It's like I said, we have Métis House, but there's also like second stage housing in Surrey, for example. Like, yeah, gathering space is great. We have it out here. Everybody's welcome to come here. Abbotsford has their school that they have a gathering space at. So yeah, if you want one single one, I suppose that's a possibility, but I think each community having their own is the most important. I mean, Alan mentioned something about accessible to seniors. That's what Métis House is. We had a ramp built purposely so people with walkers and wheelchairs could come to Métis House, right? When we redo the bathrooms, you got to make sure one is actually accessible for wheelchair. We had the NDP MLA, Dan Coulter, is in a wheelchair, and they chose Métis House as their meeting place because of its accessibility. So we have meeting space. I know he doesn't want to drive out here, Alan, but more and more people live in Chilliwack and work in Vancouver. So West Coast Express and the highway being widened, and the affordability of housing out here has made it so we've got quite a few families from the Lower Mainland Surrey area that are moving out this way. Now, we've done this on our own in the last little while. We haven't had any special treatment from MNBC or anything like that. It's just been the volunteers, the board, working their butt off to take advantage of opportunities and to build relationships with Stalo, that we got the opportunity to have Métis House. We actually were looking at expanding and building what we wanted to do was put a kind of a hall next to Métis House, because there's a lot of space there, and be able to rent out that hall to community groups as well, right? And make money off of that. But Stalo wasn't big on that. They said that they didn't want us plopping like a portable building on the land and it being owned by us, but sitting on their lands. But they did say that they would consider buying it and letting us use it in the same way that we use Métis House. So to me, that's the solution. We do have gathering spaces periodically, like the Surrey Museum when I went and volunteered there, when we had the Métis celebration there, and then what is it, the one in Millardville that North Fraser partnered on, the Festival du Bois. So we do have these gathering spaces that come up. They're just not a physical space all the time, and it's not easy when you talk about land, right?
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Alan, same question to you. Region 2, community gathering space. Myth or fact? When will Region 2 have a gathering space as other regions?
Until I get in, it's hard to say, because due to the fact that I don't know what kind of money there is in that. I know that North Fraser, they've planned on having that, and it's a lot closer for people in Vancouver than to drive to Chilliwack, because not only are you in rush hour traffic getting out there on a weeknight. Me working in construction, I drove out to Chilliwack to work, and my commute from Langley to Chilliwack in the morning was, because I leave early enough. I was leaving probably around 5:30. I got out there at a reasonable time. Coming back from from Chilliwack to Langley at 3:15, I was probably about an hour and 20 minutes to get home. So people from Vancouver during the week cannot use Métis House, because the traffic, they'd be gone for 8 hours out of the day to try to do any kind of function out there. I myself have never said that I wouldn't drive out to Chilliwack, because I've driven out to Hope for a hockey game for a family member. So that's never anything that I had ever said that I wouldn't drive out there. And so I don't know where that came from. And that's about it.
Thank you for that, from Mr. LaValle. We'll get to the next question. How would you promote the Métis identity in the region and do so without melding with First Nation identity? Mr. Lang?
We get invited to all kinds of Indigenous events by Stalo, and often it's me going as the president of Chilliwack Métis. Gracie Kelly, for example, from Suwali, she's works with the Doctors of BC. So when there's like an education thing, like an Indigenous education thing for nurses or doctors or whatever, I often get invited to just do a Métis specific one. And I enjoy doing that. And I think that's something that we need to be doing in other communities as well. I sit on the I guess it's called the IDA committee. It's the Employment Equity and Diversity committee with the new Surrey Cancer Clinic that's being built in Cloverdale. And so I'm I'm a Métis rep on there. And I'm basically doing the same thing there at those meetings, promoting steps to the company that's building it. I forget the name of the company, but Alan and I talked about it in Langley, but that committee is looking to recruit like youth and like people that are in the trades that are wanting to get their red seal. They want to hire our kids. They want to hire our actual tradespeople now to work on that project. So I get to talk about the Métis stuff at that committee and how it's, I think they call SASET. It's called SASET for First Nations, and it's their version of STEPS. So I'm linking up steps with them. So, because they've only just broken ground, they're still they haven't actually started the building of the hospital yet. But when it comes time to have plumbers and electricians and other trades in there, they want to hire our people. So I want to make sure that they understand who the Métis are when they go to hire them, that they don't just lump all Indigenous people in together. That happens in a lot of colonial institutions. They just like to use the word Indigenous and they lump us all in together. So I've always made it my commitment is to educate people on the Métis, and it helps me learn too, right? The more I do these things, the more I learn about our own history as well, because there's so much to learn. But that's what I'd be doing.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaValle, I'll ask you the same question. How would you promote the Métis identity in the region and do so without melding with First Nation identity?
I would be going out and telling telling the people that there are two different there's First Nations and Métis, and with that hospital that's being built, it's not by red seal tradesmen. It's non-union, and they get a lower wage. There's no medical, dental, and I've talked to our union hall that the rebar company out there is all non-union. They're not getting the medical and dental. And I've talked to our union hall, and I've tried to get the steps in when they came out to Langley, tried to get some information, because with my connections in the trades, I can go to all these unions and promote our Métis people, and let them know that there is a big difference between the Métis and First Nations. Like on all any big construction site right now, they have what is called a general contractor, and they sub everything out to all the different trades. And a lot of the trades, they don't have to be union anymore to get on a government job. Where at one time you had to, back in the day, it was called a TQ, a trade qualification, and that's how they had to do it. And there wasn't any grandfathering in. I was on a school out in Maple Ridge, and my father, that had probably at the time 25 years of experience, had kicked off the job because he wasn't TQ'd. My dad is the oldest of 13, so his education was, I don't know for sure, but it was a very low grade, because he had to go out and work and help the family, support the family. So that's how he done it. And he was one of the best foremen out of local 97 iron workers. And like when I was in Kamloops, I talked to the STEPS program coordinator there, and they had a welder that couldn't find a job. So I gave her the contact information for Local 97. Everyone's crying for welders. Like I'm out there to help all our kids too, so that they can get a better future in the economy that we're into now, because like a lot of it is out of their range for the local family now to live. The pricing is out of their price range. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaBelle. Just to be mindful of the time, I am going to ask the final question, and I will set you on a 3-minute timer, Mr. Lang and Mr. LaBelle, just so we can match up with the time to end by 6:30. How will you work with chartered communities to promote food sovereignty? Mr. Lang?
Yeah, well, we did it last summer. As I mentioned, we applied for a grant that allowed us to set up the farmers market every week. We gave $30 a week to our elders and families. That, and we no questions asked. You come and you were First Nations or Métis, we gave you the $30 coupon. And I would like to see MNBC maybe partner with BC farmers markets to maybe do programs like that in every region. There's more than one farmers market that's run by them. I was just in Campbell River a few weeks ago, and I went to the farmers market there. It's run by them, and they were handing out the same things there. It wasn't the Métis, but it was First Nations that were doing it. So I'd like to see us partner with the farmers market provincial group, and maybe we can direct some dollars there so each community can be doing that for their citizens that need it. Likewise, we were doing, especially through COVID, we were doing grocery cards for our seniors. But over and above that, again, we've got the Medicine Wheel Garden at Métis House, and Wayne, one of our elders, he looks after it, and he does a lot of sweetgrass stuff there. But we could be doing the same thing, but with food. And you know, the side bonus for the farmers market that we ran last year was we were able to promote First Nations and Métis artists as well, because we had the booth. The main purpose was to give out the coupon sheets so people could get healthy food, but we also had artists there selling their art. So it helped promote Métis art, it helped promote First Nations art. So it was sort of a double win over and above just the food security side of it. I'd just like to see us doing something on a regular basis so communities aren't having to apply to United Way or whoever to get funding on a sort of piecemeal basis. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lang. Mr. LaBelle, I'll ask you the same question, and you'll be given the same 3 minutes. How will you work with chartered communities to promote food sovereignty? Go ahead, Mr. LaBelle.
I know with Waichia, we have a member that has a lot of land, and they let us go out there and plant a garden. Then we share it with our elders and all that. It's a community garden, and it's at one of our elders' places, and it's also a brewery, and they do hold some Métis events for our elders and all that, which is very nice. There's like to get grants and all that, it's hard to do due to the fact that land is so hard. I've thought of going to the mayor of Langley. I live close to power lines, and a lot of them have started putting in community gardens in there. And I wanted to, a friend of mine is actually married to someone that's not the mayor, but in politics there. And I'm gonna try to set up a meeting to see if we can't get them to put some in where the power lines are to grow fruit or to grow vegetables, and then we can be giving it to our elders. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. LaValle. And now we will go ahead with the closing remarks from each candidate. Mr. Lang, you'll have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Well, thank you for letting me share tonight. This election is probably the most important election in MNBC history. We have a team that has significantly moved our nation forward in this province over the past 3 years, and we have an opportunity to keep that progress happening by electing Walter Minot and Louis DeJager along with their team. I've watched MNBC politics since the late 1990s, and I cannot remember another group of leaders that accomplished as much as we have seen in the past few years, with the possible exception of the year we won the Daniels decision at the Supreme Court. That was huge. Voters also have another choice. I encourage everyone to go read the reports by Sarah Chamberlain and Wally Opal, available publicly on the MNBC website. These are people running in this election, or there are people running in this election who have aligned themselves with a previous president who was found to have breached her fiduciary duty to Métis citizens in BC 8 times over. Wally Opal and Sarah Chamberlain are esteemed members of the legal community who interviewed several witnesses and came to their own unbiased conclusions. The previous president's team do not care that their leader has never answered to the MNBC citizens about her disgraceful conduct and bullying. We cannot afford to go back to that style of leadership where self-interest trumps the best interests of the citizens and bullying staff is an accepted leadership style. Those days are done. We offer a better alternative, an ethical alternative, and we will fight for Métis and BC. I have a reputation for sticking my neck out for marginalized people, even when I have no skin in the game. I will go to bat for Region 2 communities and citizens when they need me, and I will fight in the darkest corners for what is right. I have proven that with my activism, and I have proven it in my professional life by holding the federal public service to account for allowing non-Indigenous people to fraudulently self-declare as Métis. Filing a human rights case cost me friends, it cost me money, and it cost me promotions and opportunities, but I did it because it was the right thing to do. I will do the same for Métis citizens. I will put your collective interest ahead of my own individual gain. So vote for Peter Lang by September 7th, and I will not let you down. Chimegwich, Marcy. My website's on Facebook if you'd like to reach out to me personally. It's called Peter Lang for Region 2 Director. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Peter. Same as you, Alan, you'll have 3 minutes to go over your closing remarks. Go ahead.
In closing, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for using your valuable time to see me, question me, and listen to me. I know there is always something keeping us busy, so your time is appreciated. I am hoping you know a little bit more about me as a man, as a family member, as part of a community, and a citizen of the Métis Nation. I may be a fresh, older face in the politics of being an MNBC candidate. Although this platform is new to me, I have attended many MNBC venues and I have always been there for people in need. Your views, ideas, suggestions, and voices are important to me. I believe together we can help each other bring about better communications and resolutions to so many issues. I'd like to offer my time and assistance to you. My ancestry is very important to me, and my strong values are because of my upbringing. Our family attended church regularly. On cultural and heritage, we were always known, spoken about, and shared with others. I was taught at an early age to respect and honor our veterans and elders. They paved the way for us and have so much to offer. Veterans and elders need our assistance in so many ways regarding funding, housing, medical issues. It's our time to look after them. In a few years, my grandson will be looking towards an occupation for his future. Work knowledge needs to be advertised to our youth and citizens so that they have the opportunity to inform choices regarding their future. Families need to be educated to enable them to keep their children and assets in foster care. I have shown and committed to all my life to our elders, veteran, youth, family, Métis citizens, and people in general. Our citizens need to be brought together through communities as they always have been the Métis way. At present, we seem to be all about individuals instead of working together for the greater good of those citizens. I am Alan Lavalley, candidate for Region 2 Director in the upcoming MNBC election. Vote for me. I will hear you. I will put forth your views. Together we can work to bring our communities back together where they started being. Citizens helping citizens and communities helping communities once again being part of many instead of just one. Take a chance on me. We can bring this about change. I am Alan LaValle, candidate for Region 2 Director, MNBC. Remember to vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. LaValle. I'd like to thank everybody that had taken the time to attend the virtual town hall. I'd like to also thank the two candidates for attending and giving their platform, closing remarks, and addressing any questions from the voting public. Again, thank you all for your time. Thank you, MNBC and candidates and membership for allowing one feather to be the moderators for this evening. In the next 24 to 48 hours, the recording of this town hall will be posted on the MNB site for the candidates and the voting membership to review. So, hi, Naskaman. Best of luck to everybody. Have a good night.